The captive of the Empire. The cell was cold. Not just cold in temperature, but in feeling, sterile, lifeless, a steel box drifting in the void. Chains hung from the walls, not needed anymore. Lyra Vale hadn't resisted in weeks. She sat on the floor, arms folded around her knees, her body thin, her face bruised, but her eyes, those deep, defiant human eyes, still burned with a quiet fire. Outside the cell, boots clanked against metal. A pair of tall, insectoid guards marched past. One turned his head, its compound eyes buzzing softly as it peered inside. "She's still alive," it hissed in Galactic Common. Pity. Lyra didn't move. She'd learned early that movement invited attention, and attention meant pain. The door opened with a hydraulic hiss. Light flooded the chamber. Then came the voice. Commander Vrax. Cold. Calculating. Cruel. The Empire's most feared interrogator. Not because he shouted, but because he didn't have to. He stepped in, armored boots spotless, hands clasped behind his back. His purple skin shimmered slightly under the lights. His reptilian eyes narrowed as he looked down at her. "You know why I'm here, human," he said. She didn't reply. "You've been given time. Mercy even. That mercy ends today." Still no answer. Vrax knelt slowly, bringing his face level with hers. "Where's the Terran archive?" he asked softly. Silence. He smiled faintly. "You humans are always so proud. So stubborn. Even now, when your species is ashes, you cling to what? Hope." Lyra finally looked up. Her lips cracked. Her voice was dry. "You're afraid of that hope." Vrax's smile vanished. In a flash, he stood and gestured. The guards dragged her up, strapping her wrists to a frame in the center of the room. Machines hummed. Electrodes lowered. "You were warned," Vrax said, activating the pain cycle. "The Empire breaks all things, including you." Electricity surged through her body. Pain like fire. Her scream echoed through the hallways, but she did not beg. She did not speak. Even as her body convulsed, even as blackness crowded her vision, she held on. Because she had to. Because deep in her bones, something whispered, "Hold on. Just a little longer." Hours passed. Lyra lay slumped, barely breathing. Her body twitched occasionally. Her heart rate slowed. Vrax watched her vitals. "Is she dead?" one of the techs asked. Vrax tilted his head. "No, not yet." He leaned in, voice almost gentle. "But she will be." He pressed a final command. A pulse of dark energy radiated through her nervous system. Her body jerked once, then stilled. The screen flatlined. Commander Vrax exhaled. Finally, Lyra's body was transported to Sector 9, the Empire's primary xenobiology lab. There, bodies were dissected, studied, and repurposed. But Lyra's body wasn't like the others. Her DNA had fascinated scientists since her arrival. There were fragments, remnants of old Earth tech embedded within her genome. Encrypted, dormant, beyond imperial decoding. One scientist, Dr. Kesri, leaned over the scan. "This isn't right," she muttered. "Her neural map is still active?" "Impossible," her assistant replied. But the screen didn't lie. Patterns, faint, rhythmic, danced across Lyra's brain. Kesri's hands trembled. "There's something waking up." Suddenly, Lyra's heart monitor beeped. Once. Twice. The assistant gasped. "Is that?" Lyra's fingers twitched. Her eyes flew open, glowing with unnatural blue light. Across the station, emergency lights flashed. Siren screamed. Dr. Kesri backed away, horrified. She was dead. Lyra sat up, her wounds knitting together before their eyes. She looked at them, not with fear but with focus. "Where am I?" she asked, voice deeper now. "Resonant." The assistant raised a weapon. "Don't move." Lyra raised her hand. The weapon exploded, disintegrated in a burst of blue light. The assistant was thrown across the room. Kesri dropped to her knees. "What are you?" Lyra blinked, as if hearing a voice only she could hear. "I don't know yet," she whispered, "but I know who I was." She looked around. Her vision scanned the room, her mind calculating escape routes, systems access points, weapon caches. Everything felt clear. She wasn't just alive. She was reborn. 10 minutes later, The Sector 9 alarm reached Commander Vrax. "She what?" he barked. The officer stammered. "Yes, sir. The human, Lyra, she's alive. She's changed." Vrax's hands clenched into fists. "Send everything. I want her contained." But it was too late. By the time Vrax reached the lab, Lyra was gone. The security footage showed her moving through the halls with terrifying speed. Imperial soldiers fell one by one, unarmed, outmaneuvered, overwhelmed by a force they couldn't understand. One image froze on Vrax's screen. Lyra, standing on the hangar deck, bathed in blue light, staring directly into the camera. And then she was gone, having hijacked a prototype warship and vanished into hyperspace. Vrax stared at the screen. "This is not possible," he growled. Behind him, Kesri whispered, "It wasn't just her. Something in her genome activated. Something old. Something human." Vrax turned, face pale. "Then we have a problem?" He looked at the stars, and for the first time, the Empire felt something it hadn't felt in centuries. 40 minutes later, the stars blurred around her as the stolen Imperial warship shot into hyperspace. Alarms blared, systems blinked, and Lyra Vale, once broken, now reborn, stood at the helm, alive just 40 minutes after death. She didn't understand how. Her heart beat in perfect rhythm. Her wounds were gone. Her muscles felt stronger, her mind sharper, like she could hear the ship itself breathing. Every light, wire, and panel pulsed with her senses. This wasn't resurrection. This was evolution. 40 minutes earlier, her corpse had been a statistic. Another human, tortured and silenced by the Empire. The scientists thought they could disassemble her secrets. What they didn't realize was that humanity had prepared for extinction. Project Rebirth, a last-gen experiment. Only a handful of human children were born with it dormant in their DNA. Lyra had been one of them. A failsafe hidden in the double helix. A code waiting to ignite. And it had. Now, racing through the stars, she opened the command console with a wave of her hand. The interface shifted, adapting to her presence. Confirm genetic match. Terran prototype. Rebirth code 07. Lyra Vale. Her voice, steady and resonant, echoed in the cockpit. "I need a destination. Somewhere off-grid. Somewhere safe." A map appeared, highlighting deep space, zones the Empire ignored. One pulsed red, a forgotten system in the outer rim, Saros 9. Low activity, high radiation, no known Imperial presence. Perfect. Lyra locked in the coordinates. Meanwhile, far behind her, chaos rippled through the Empire's command. Commander Vrax stood before the Imperial Senate Tribunal, forced to explain what should have been impossible. "You said she was dead," the senator hissed, his gills flaring with rage. "She was," Vrax snapped, "but something triggered in her biology. We believe it's ancient Terran tech." A murmur passed through the chamber. "You lost a prisoner," the senator said coldly. "Now you've created a symbol." Vrax stiffened. "I will find her, and I will end her." "You better," the senator said, "before others start to believe she can't be stopped." Back on the warship, Lyra explored her new self. She could see in spectrums beyond normal human range. Infrared, electromagnetic waves. She touched a panel, and the ship responded like an extension of her body. The energy inside her wasn't magic. It was nanotech, activated and fused with her cells. Where once were limits, now was potential. But it came with memories. Flashbacks. Torture. Screams. Her own death. She remembered her mother's last words. "No matter what they do to you, remember who you are." She clenched her fists. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing for war. As the ship neared Saros 9, an alert flashed. Vessel approaching. Imperial signature detected. Lyra's eyes narrowed. A scout ship, no doubt tracking the energy burst from her escape. They found her fast. Too fast. "Let's test this," she muttered. She dropped out of hyperspace near an asteroid belt, letting the environment conceal her presence. The Imperial scout passed close, scanning. Lyra synced with the ship's targeting systems. One shot. Clean. Silent. The scout exploded before it even realized it was being hunted. She flew on. Saros 9 came into view, dark, radioactive, scarred by ancient wars. She landed the ship in a ravine, shielding it with leftover debris and signal jammers. Then she stepped outside. The air was thin but breathable. The ground crunched under her boots. The planet was dead, but the quiet felt like freedom. For the first time in years, she was alone. Free. She looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were still alive. Hiding. Scattered. Waiting. She had to find them. Not just to survive, but to awaken them. Because if she had this power, maybe others did too. Back in the Empire's capital, Vrax reviewed surveillance footage over and over. Lyra's escape, her glowing eyes, her control of Imperial tech. She's not human anymore, his aide said. Vrax shook his head. No, she's more human than any of us have ever seen. The aide hesitated. Should we declare her an anomaly? Vrax turned slowly. No, declare her an enemy of the Empire. Effective immediately, she is to be hunted, captured, or, if necessary, destroyed. In the ruins of Saros 9, Lyra found a derelict Terran satellite dish, half buried, dead for decades. She placed her hand on it. The blue light from her fingers surged into the old circuits. Screens flickered. A map loaded. Hidden human colonies. Outposts. Emergency signals. They were out there, and they needed her. As her energy recharged the system, one beacon blinked. Terra Nova Colony. Status. Weak signal. Need assistance. Lyra stared at the coordinates. That would be her next destination. She stood tall, wind cutting across the dead planet. No longer a prisoner. No longer a victim. She had died, but now she had returned, stronger than ever. And the galaxy would remember what it meant to fight a human who had nothing left to lose. Humanity strikes back. The journey to Terra Nova was long and perilous. Lyra's stolen warship, though sleek and fast, had limited stealth capabilities. Every light year she traveled brought her closer to Imperial space and closer to danger. But she didn't slow down. She couldn't. The beacon had called her. Faint, broken, but undeniably human. Terra Nova was hidden on the edge of a dying star system, its sun flickering like a candle on its last breath. Once a thriving colony of refugees, it was now reduced to ruins, tucked beneath mountains of rock and ice. Lyra landed her ship in silence. No welcoming party. No defense towers. Just silence and static in the air. She stepped out into the cold, her boots crunching on cracked ice. Her glowing blue eyes scanned the desolate landscape. Then movement. From the shadows emerged a group of figures. Worn clothes, starved faces, children peeking out behind adults, and weapons, primitive, barely functioning rifles aimed at her. "Stay where you are," a woman shouted. Her voice was cracked but commanding. Lyra raised her hand slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you." One of the men stepped forward, his eyes widening. "Wait, her face. I've seen her face before." The woman lowered her rifle slightly. "The escaped prisoner, the one who came back. The one who revived," someone whispered. Lyra nodded. "My name is Lyra Vale. I was taken. I was tortured. And I died." She paused. "But I came back. And I'm here to help." Inside their underground refuge, Lyra met the last remnants of Terra Nova, barely 100 survivors. They had once been engineers, scientists, teachers. Now, they were rebels with no army, refugees with no hope. But when they looked at her, their expressions changed. Wonder, awe, belief. The woman who led them introduced herself as Captain Rhea Calder, former Terran fleet officer. "We thought we were all that's left," Rhea said, staring into the fire. "The Empire's been hunting us for decades. They erased Earth, our history, even our language in some places. But we held on." Lyra touched a panel in the old base, her energy sparking systems to life. Lights came on. Maps returned. Drones hummed. "You don't have to just survive anymore," she said. "We can fight back." Rhea gave her a long look. "You really believe we could defeat the Empire?" "No," Lyra said. "I believe we can scare them." Over the next few days, Lyra worked with the survivors. She helped them reactivate their old technology, using her new abilities to sync with the ancient Terran systems. Children who had never seen sunlight played beneath artificial skies she restored. Elders wept as the colony's original anthem played from dusty speakers. But more than that, Lyra trained them. She wasn't a soldier, but something in her, something reborn, understood tactics, strength, movement. She taught them to fight not as an army, but as a force of nature. And they listened, because when they looked at her, they didn't just see a girl. They saw hope. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the Empire tightened its grip. Commander Vrax launched full-scale operations to find and eliminate Lyra. Whole systems were scanned. Colonies were raided. Survivors were executed in her name. Propaganda spread like wildfire. The reborn one must be destroyed. But it had the opposite effect. Her story, once whispered in shadows, now blazed like fire through every slave world and broken colony. They killed her, people said, and she came back. If she can rise, so can we. Back at Terra Nova, an encrypted signal pierced the silence. Rhea ran into the command room. We just picked up something. An Imperial scout ship spotted us. They're coming. Lyra stepped forward. How long? 3 days. Maybe less. Lyra didn't flinch. Then we have 3 days to prepare. They set traps in orbit. Mines made from old reactor cores. They reinforced their tunnels, rerouted power through old weapons arrays. But it wasn't enough. We can't hold them forever, Rhea said grimly. If they send even one cruiser. They won't just send a cruiser, Lyra said. They'll send a fleet. She looked around. Then we make them bleed. The fleet came. 6 Imperial destroyers, flanked by 2 carriers and dozens of fighter drones. Commander Vrax himself led the assault from his flagship. They won't escape this time, he growled. But as the ships neared Terra Nova, they were met with something the Empire hadn't expected. Resistance. The mines exploded first, taking out 2 destroyers before they even reached orbit. Then came the fighters, small, fast, maneuvering through asteroid fields with deadly precision. Lyra led them in a captured Imperial craft, now reprogrammed and upgraded with Terran AI. She moved like a ghost, slipping through their defenses, disabling cruisers from the inside out. The Empire panicked. This is impossible, one commander shouted. They're just survivors. No, Vrax growled, watching Lyra's ship streak across his view screen. There's something else now. In the chaos, Lyra boarded the main flagship, Vrax's ship. Alarms blared. Troops swarmed, but nothing stopped her. She moved with speed and power that no human should have had. She disarmed soldiers, shattered metal doors, ripped control panels apart. Finally, she stood before Vrax. He drew his blade. So, you did come back. I did, Lyra said, her eyes glowing bright. And I brought everyone you thought you killed with me. They fought, blade versus fists, Imperial tech versus human spirit. It was brutal, but in the end, Lyra stood victorious, Vrax on his knees, defeated. You can kill me, he spat, but another will take my place. Lyra leaned in. Good. Let them try. The flagship exploded minutes later. The surviving Imperial fleet retreated. Terra Nova stood, damaged, scarred, but free. And Lyra? She wasn't done yet. She stood on the cliffs above the colony, wind blowing through her hair. The people gathered below, cheering, raising old Terran flags. Lyra looked to the stars. We're not just fighting back, she whispered. We're taking back everything. And across the galaxy, the message spread like wildfire. Humanity is rising. The rise of the revived. The stars shone brighter now, not because they had changed, but because hope had returned to the galaxy. Word of Lyra's victory at Terra Nova spread through smuggler networks, resistance frequencies, and even within the shadows of the Empire itself. A whisper became a roar. A dead girl had come back to life and brought the Empire to its knees. But Lyra knew this was just the beginning. The Empire would retaliate. They always did. In the hidden command center beneath Terra Nova, Lyra stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Red zones marked Imperial strongholds. Blue marked fallen colonies. And then, small green dots began to appear. Human signals. Colonies that had gone dark years ago were reawakening. Project Rebirth wasn't just for me, Lyra said aloud. There are others. Captain Rhea Calder stepped beside her. You think they're waking up now because of you? No, Lyra said softly. I think I was just the first trigger. Humanity built its survival into our DNA. Into us. They didn't want extinction, they wanted a revolution. Rhea smiled faintly. Then let's light that revolution. Over the next few weeks, the galaxy changed. Small resistance cells began to rise. An enslaved, mining moon overthrew its governors after hearing Lyra's broadcast. A fleet of rogue Terran ships emerged from a deep space nebula, guided by an old admiral who once served Earth's final command. And on remote planets, young humans began to exhibit strange changes, regeneration, enhanced senses, and even technopathic abilities. The revived were awakening. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were humanity's evolution. The Empire responded with fury. Systems were locked down. Planetary bombardments increased. Propaganda flooded the stars. The reborn are abominations. They threaten the order. They must be exterminated. But it was too late. The fear that once silenced the galaxy had been replaced by something stronger. Fire. Lyra and her allies formed the Terran Revived Front, a network of old military leaders, engineers, and newly awakened humans. They launched coordinated strikes on communication hubs, resource depots, and data archives. Each mission weakened the Empire. Each success inspired more to rise. And each battle brought Lyra closer to her final goal: liberate Earth. Earth had become a symbol of defeat, a dead planet turned into a monument of the Empire's dominance. No humans were allowed to approach it. Entire fleets patrolled its orbit. But deep inside, the old Terran AI cores still pulsed, dormant, waiting. Lyra believed Earth held the master key to Project Rebirth, the final piece. The Empire feared that, and so they tried to trap her. An encoded message reached Terra Nova. From Colony 17. Revived child found. Injured. Being hunted. Lyra didn't hesitate. She led a small strike team to the location. But it was a setup. As her team landed on the snow-covered world, a fleet of Imperial dreadnoughts surrounded them. Brax was gone, but his replacement, Grand Inquisitor Malric, was colder, smarter, and more ruthless. You led them well, Lyra, he said over comms. But this is where your revolution dies. For the first time, Lyra felt real fear. They fought. Blades clashed in frozen forests. Laser fire lit up the sky. Lyra's team held out as long as they could, buying time for a desperate escape. She was injured, wounded by an energy lance that bypassed her regenerative systems. Her vision blurred. Her limbs ached. But then something shifted. The child they had come to rescue, just a boy, stepped into the battlefield, eyes glowing like stars. He raised his hands and unleashed a wave of pure force that shattered the Inquisitor's assault line. Lyra stared in shock. The boy walked to her. You came for me, he said. Always, she whispered. The two of them, revived, escaped into the night sky as the forest burned behind them. Back at Terra Nova, Lyra healed. The child, now called Corinne, stayed by her side. She knew now. The revived were growing. Young, old, across planets. She wasn't the last hope anymore. She was the first spark, and it was time to finish what had been started. The Terran revived fleet gathered in the black void just beyond Earth's orbit. Hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters, revived leaders on every deck. Lyra stood on her flagship's bridge, clad in armor made from fused Terran and Imperial tech. Today, she announced, we take back our home. The fleet surged forward. The Empire didn't give up easily. Orbital defenses rained fire. Battleships locked onto human vessels. But the revived fought like ghosts, faster, stronger, unafraid. Lyra led the charge, diving straight into enemy lines, disabling cruisers with a touch, fusing into their systems and shutting them down from the inside. Corin fought beside her, his mind linking dozens of revived minds into one shared vision. Earth's surface came into view, dead, gray, but Lyra smiled. It's still ours. They landed, and in the ruins of old Terran cities, they activated the final AI core, GAIA, humanity's last digital memory. The voice of GIA echoed across the galaxy. Project Rebirth complete. The Terran spirit endures. A pulse surged across all revived, awakening the last codes dormant in their bodies. They were no longer hunted. They were no longer weak. They were no longer alone. From the ashes of oppression, the revived rose, not just to avenge the past, but to build a future where no child would be enslaved, where no voice will be silenced, where the stars belong to all. Lyra stood on Earth's surface, looking up at the sky. Behind her, a flag waved, not the old one, but a new symbol, a glowing star encircled by rising wings. Rhea approached. "You did it." Lyra shook her head. "We did." And across the stars, billions watched as the message was broadcast. "The Empire tried to kill us, but we came back. We are the revived, and we're just getting started."